3 cheap cars that everybody ignores. While everybody's searching the classifieds trying to get overly priced used Camrys, Accords, Civics, did you realize that there's 3 absolutely amazing used cars on the market that everybody seems to be ignoring and missing out on absolute great deals? Well, I'm going to share a list of 3 of those amazing cars. They're right in front of your face and you definitely can't go wrong. Let's get into it now. Life's too short to drive boring cars. I have a great mechanic buddy who owns a shop and he sees a whole variety of different cars. Each and every time that he sees the same type of vehicle, he absolutely springs to life, looks at opportunities to buy it off the owner. He even spends times at the auction looking for used versions that maybe got traded in and clearly got missed. The 4th generation of the Mazda 6 runs from about 2014 up to about 2021. It is absolutely a gem. Now it's a mid-size vehicle, sedan, that's going to meet the demands of almost every driver looking for the practical car. 4 doors, trunk, seating for 5, and of course it looked great too. Well, a lot of people are looking at Toyota Camrys and Accords and assuming those are the only cars on the market. Why? Because they're Japanese-made cars and that's what people trust putting hundreds of thousands of miles on. But did you realize the Mazda 6 is one of those cars that's also a Japanese-derived vehicle? And fortunately, they have an engine, a Skyactiv engine that is absolutely bulletproof. Did you also realize timing chains? Forget about it. They take care of themselves. They're basically maintenance free. But on top of it, the vehicles are built with the transmission that is absolutely bulletproof. Now we're hearing the latest by Toyota with their 8-speed automatic transmission. Unfortunately, we don't hear it until years later. And while most people would agree that Toyotas and Camrys and Accords are some of the most reliable cars on the planet, Mazda has a whole host of vehicles that people often overlook because it in fact has its own in-house built 6-speed automatic transmission. You can also get a 6-speed manual in certain markets. It is an absolute bulletproof piece. They give you a naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 13:1 compression ratio inline 4-cylinder engine. Yes, the naturally aspirated version is the most reliable version, although you can also get a turbo version, which is going to give you all sorts of pep. It's a very reliable drivetrain. 250, 300,000 miles all day long. So while a lot of those Accord owners and Camry owners are of course looking at, hey, I've got the latest and the greatest and the best of the brand and certainly the best in the industry, there are some truth that an Accord and a Camry are some of the most reliable vehicles. But when you're talking about a vehicle like a Mazda 6, people often miss out. It has reliable transmissions, no CVT transmissions there, no dual clutch gearboxes there either, and it's just made to go for hundreds of thousands of miles. While many people are buying, say a 2015, 2016 Toyota Camry for $17,000, $18,000, $19,000 on the used car market with a moderate types of mileage, the Mazda 6 is more like $12,000 to $14,000. That's right, you're a $5,000 spread between a Mazda 6 and a SE Camry, which are effectively the same vehicle. Now, are there some drawbacks? Absolutely. Maintenance costs are lower on the Mazda 6. The average water pump might be in that $600 to $700 replacement cost, whereas the average Accord is going to cost you probably $1,000 to $1,200, and the average Camry is going to be just under $1,000. Those other brands do come with what I call a Toyota tax. Yes, you pay for that durability, you pay for that reliability, and it's a great car. You can't dispute it. But Mazda has often been overlooked. But while people are spending that $5,000 more for the Camry, the Mazda 6 offers up the same level of durability. You can get hundreds of thousands of miles. And guess what? It's almost bulletproof. Now there's a few things to consider. If you're seeing some of the controls in the center display, if they get a little wobbly and a little bit loose, those are signs that maybe have been abused. A lot of the buttons and knobs don't necessarily wear the best on some of the internals. On top of it, if you're looking at some of the earlier generations, 2014s, 2015s, there have been known discussions all over the forums about thin paint, peeling paint, flaky paint, corrosion. Yes, corrosion's been a bit of an issue, and particularly if you're living in a snow belt, some of the places in the northern states, maybe eastern Canada, where they apply a lot of the salt on the roads, some of the Mazdas have been known to prematurely rust. Outside of that, you are welcome to a vehicle that will last hundreds of thousands of miles, and the massive depreciation that these see are a benefit for you. Now, what are the drawbacks? Some of these cars have also been known to get some clunking in the back ends. Basically, if you're driving down the road and you let up on the gas and all of a sudden you get a clunk, 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 or you're hearing some clunk as you're transitioning and changing lanes. Sometimes that's motor mounts. Well, for, $800 to $1,000, you can get your motor mounts looked after. It's a relatively cheap fix.
Shut up and take my money.
As well as we're talking about some of the electronics and infotainment components, there have been glitches. But by and large, the Mazda 6 is so reliable, the only real issues you're going to find typically are electrical gremlins. Do your maintenance, and annual services range anywhere from $300 to $400. It's a very cheap vehicle to keep on the road. With brakes, tires, maybe the odd spark plug change, that's all you're going to expect. It's one of the most reliable brands on the market, and according to Consumers Reports, they're one of the highest ranking manufacturers on the market today out of all brands. On top of it, RepairPal even ranks it 4 out of 5 star, means that it's one of the most reliable vehicles based on mechanics reviews as well as based on consumers reviews. You definitely can't go wrong with a Mazda 6. The only drawback is you will continue to see further depreciation. You buy it, want to flip it in 2 or 3 years, you will see further depreciation to that, and you will probably lose a couple of bucks. Long-term ownership looks like a vehicle with minimal costs, minimal muss, and minimal fuss. Definitely one my mechanic recommends, definitely one I recommend. The second gem of a car that's super cheap that I have to let people know about. A mechanic buddy of mine we went to the auction one time and he pointed this out to me, and I never really had my eyes on the prize until I recognized that the 5th generation of the Buick Regal, but the 2nd generation or update of that 5th generation is the one we're talking about from 2014 and up. Yes, it has a whole host of positive winning features. It was co-developed with Opel. That's right. In fact, it's a co-designed with a German manufacturer, and you can get a 6-speed ACENT transmission, which is also a Japanese-made transmission, ultra reliable. So what's not to love? The German performance, you get the Japanese reliability with drivetrains, but it's also a sporty-looking vehicle. The added benefit is nobody's looking for Buicks. It's a gray hair special. I mean, how many young people have you been driving around in Buicks? Crickets. Not many from what I've seen. Almost everybody driving a Buick is somebody with gray hair, usually 67 years old. That is a win for you. If you're looking for an absolute gem with great performance numbers, reliability on the same LTG engine platform that won Ward's 10 Best Engines 3 years in a row with a luxury car brand name, but the low service costs associated with domestic products because it is ultimately a General Motors product, and even comparing the odd occasional repair like a timing chain that is only going to cost you between $1,200 to $1,500 on a product like this versus a BMW going to be somewhere in that $35,000 to $4,000 range, it begs the question why more people aren't buying these Buick Regals, the 5th generation. It is absolutely mind-blowing. To do a turbo replacement, it's literally 3 hours labor. It's right there in front of the engine. You can see it. It's easy access. Compare that to a product like a BMW N54, an engine that I had in a 335. You have to strip apart the whole manifold, all the wiring. It's a whole upside-down affair, and it could cost you $3,000 to $4,000 in labor costs alone, plus the parts. It's astronomical. A lot of times people ask me, what would you rather buy, a Buick or a BMW? Well, that all depends. And cars like the B58 powered BMWs are absolutely gems. But that being said, you pay a lot of money. So for $8,000 to $9,000 for a slightly and lightly used Buick Regal, you can get a similar level of performance as well as a much lower running cost than a BMW powered, say something with an N20 engine that you're probably going to pay $12,000 to $15,000 on and have triple the annual maintenance costs. Because while the average BMW has an annual service cost of in that $800 to $900 per year, even for the older cars, remember those parts don't get any cheaper and the hourly rate just keeps going up. The average service cost for a Buick Regal is only about $563 according to RepairPal, and on top of it they also rank these vehicles at 3.5 out of 5 star, ranking them quite reliable overall. And remember, RepairPal is a conglomeration of all of these polls taken by mechanics across the nation. A few common failure modes that you might want to consider are the odd time you get a key that sticks in the ignition and it won't come out, the odd time a mass airflow sensor, oxygen sensor, or other sensors related to crankshaft. It might crank, but it won't start. That's not an uncommon phenomenon, but that happens on almost any engine. There have been the odd issue with the solenoid in the transmission, but ultimately it's an overall very reliable product. The odd coolant leak, the odd oil leak, as they age, every vehicle does that. It doesn't matter from a Toyota, Honda to a BMW. The question is, how much are you paying for shop rate? Well, you're probably in that $150 to $180 per hour on shop rate versus the average BMW shop rate in that $220 to $200 $150. So you see how parts start to get a little bit more expensive to replace. And these ones are very, very cheap. A couple other parts to consider are the oil turbo inlet piping. They're known to crack and split, and a lot of cars do. Turbo heat, plastics under the hood. Hey, that's the name of the game these days. But guess what? It's only about 20 minutes to replace. It's only about $130 for the part itself, so it's a very, very cheap fix. The PCV was a bit of an issue prior to 2014. That's why I say get the later generation of that 5th gen, and you're going to have a vehicle that's very reliable. That does tend to fix some of the oil consumption issues that they had in the earlier models. Thanks so much for all the new members supporting the channel. If you want your own emoji, priority questions, and sneak peek of a new video, or you just want to support the channel, be sure to hit down there, hit that link. That's going to do all the work for you. Thanks again so much, everybody. Another car is one that most people wouldn't even be caught dead in, and that's the best part of it. It's driven typically by old grannies. Yes, if you had a grandparent, you're probably going to find that that's the kind of car that they have. Sometimes they'll leave it in their will, and then a lot of people just want to unload it. Why would you want to do that? Because the Toyota Avalon 4th generation starting in 2012 is exactly the car you want, because that generation runs up to 2018, is absolutely bulletproof beyond belief. It has the most reliable V6 engine that Toyota's ever manufactured. The 2GR-FE V6, 3.5 liter V6. Forget about direct injection. Forget about turbos. Forget about timing belts. None of that's going to matter because it doesn't have any of it. And a lot of these engines are known to go for 400, 500, 600,000 miles and beyond, just because of its simplicity, its durability, the fact it was over-engineered and overbuilt. It is a real reliable workhorse. Unfortunately, a lot of people see it as a bit of an old person's car, not unlike a Buick, but the reality is you get a car that's built on the same platform essentially as the Lexus ES 350. And we know that the Lexus ES is one of the most reliable Lexus products that they've ever made. The Lexus products generally give you a much nicer interior. The fit and finish inside is a little bit dressed up, but it's effectively the same vehicle, all built in the Kentucky plant together, side by side, the Toyota Avalon and the Lexus ES. But the beauty is, it's more car than a Toyota Camry could ever dream to be, and that's the problem. Everybody goes and thinks automatically Honda Accord and Toyota Camry, those are the cars you want. There's even not just more car, bigger car, better bang for buck, and equal reliability, but it's more luxurious than a Camry. It has more features, more safety features, and it's just a nicer product overall. And guess what? The best news yet? It's even cheaper than the same year and equivalently equipped Camry or even the Lexus ES. Because according to classifieds, you can pull up an XLE version of the Avalon with, say about 110,000 miles, and they range from $14,000 to $16,000. Compare that to the XLE V6 Camry with also roughly 110,000 miles, and you're going to find the price anywhere from $15,000 to about $18,000. So you're actually paying a premium for the Camry, which is a smaller and poorer equipped vehicle than the Avalon. The Lexus ES350, pretty much the same vehicle, transversely mounted V6, runs for $21,000 to $24,000. It's the same car. Sure, they give you a few nicer touches with the leather seating and the extra doodads and electronics, but it's effectively fundamentally the same car. Now, are there some drawbacks? Yes, there's been comments of transmissions with higher mileage, 150 to 200,000 miles, and they start to act a little strange. They start to judder. There's the odd transmission that doesn't act all real smooth with that 6-speed. There's also cases about the rear sunshade jamming up. There's cases with the exhaust system sort of starting to get rattly or corroding through. These are not uncommon factors. A lot of the Japanese cars tend to see that, particularly in the Rust Belt states and provinces. That's just going to be par for the course. Engine mounts are another issue. Shuttering brakes, because we all know that Toyotas generally underbuild their brakes. They're a little bit light in my own personal opinion. Infotainment screens that crap out. Overall, the car is vastly reliable. So much, in fact, that the annual service cost based on RepairPal is only about $463. And RepairPal also states that it's a 4 out of 5 star for the average Avalon. That is a dream come true, and unfortunately a lot of people just sleep on these cars, and I don't know why. Other drawbacks, you can look for misalignment issues. That could cost you some cash up front. Water pump might only be $500 or $600 in these vehicles. And you have to also recognize that the variable valve timing, which they have 2 systems on these vehicles, intake as well as exhaust, have been known to have a rupture on the variable valve timing lines. If you lose the oil dumps, and that could be a toasted engine. But those are rare situations, and you usually have time to react. That was also an internal recall, and most of those vehicles have already been retrofitted. Another drawback drawback with the Avalon is the interior is quite large. The back seats are spacious like a limousine. The trunk space is long and cavernous. So the only drawback is these vehicles are quite large. And if you thought Camrys were big, well, guess what? An Avalon's even larger. So if you have a tighter parking quarters, or you're parking downtown somewhere, or small spots where it's very difficult to get in, this might be a challenge for you. But if you're a person that appreciates keeping your money in your wallet, you want to buy into a car, drive it for 5 or 6 or 7 years, get the same amount of money out of it that you wanted that you paid in the first place, and you also don't want to put more than $1,000 or $2,000 in it for a 5-year or 6-year time frame, well, the Avalon is definitely your game. That's why I can't help but go on and on and on, because this also has that engine that we all miss so dearly. With all of these new drivetrains now, even Toyota themselves is going with turbo 2.4s, the turbo 3.4s, which are blowing bearings. They're also going with engines and hybrid drivetrains and direct fuel injection. Now this has none of that. No turbos, no direct and fuel injection. It's just a good old-fashioned drivetrain. Still decent on fuel, still very reliable, still very practical, and you won't lose your shirt. But with all of that said, why you might want to buy one of these older Avalons, check out right there. What's been going on the last decade for Toyota has been absolutely disastrous. Here's some of my favorites over here you might want to buy. The only ones I would buy today in 2026 if you're shopping new. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon, everybody. We'll catch you then. Bye-bye.